Hey everybody, we're going to work through a couple more problems from that old final exam. We're going to do number 5 and number 6. So here's number 5, graph this line. Lines are easiest to graph if they are in slope-intercept form, so let's start by putting this equation in slope-intercept form. So first we're going to distribute the 5 here like that. So y minus 30 equals 5x minus 25. Next, we need to get the y by itself. So that's add 30 to both sides. Like this. We get y equals 5x plus 5. All right, so this right here, this 5 here, that's our y-intercept, usually called b. So that's the y-intercept. And this right here, this is the slope, 5. And the thing to remember about the slope is that it's the change in y over the change in x. So when we use this slope, we're going to interpret this number, 5, as a fraction. One way to interpret it as a fraction is 5 over 1. So we could take delta y to be 5 and delta x to be 1. Or we could take delta y to be minus 5 and delta x to be minus 1. So you have some options here on how you interpret the slope. We'll see when we actually graph this that it's good to have options because this interpretation of the slope actually isn't so helpful. It's going to send us off the graph. So let's go ahead and graph this line now that we know our y-intercept and our slope. So the y-intercept is 5, so that means our line is going to start right here. Okay, now if we tried to use this interpretation of the slope, delta y is 5 and delta x is 1, we'd go right 1 and up 5, but that sends us right off the graph, so this isn't so helpful. We'll use this option for slope instead, negative 5 and negative 1. So a delta x of negative 1, that means we need to back up 1 in the x direction. And delta y being negative 5, that sends us down 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here is another point on our line. Now that we have 2 points on our line, we can go ahead and just draw the line. So like this, which is hard to do on this tablet. So there's our line. All right, so now let's have a look at number 6. Here's number 6. Find the equation of the line through these 2 points, negative 3, 5 and 1, 7. All right. So when you're going to find the equation of a line through some points, usually you'll use point-slope form. And point-slope form looks like this. Y minus y1 equals slope m times x minus x1. It doesn't matter which point we choose for x1, y1. I guess we'll use this first one. So x1 is going to be negative 3, and y1 is going to be 5. Now when we go to calculate the slope, we'll use this other point. So this other point, we'll call this x2 and y2. Okay, so let's calculate the slope. We can use just the slope formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So put everything in here. We're going to get, let's see, 7 minus 5 over 1 minus negative 3. Careful about the minus sign there. So minus a negative, that's really adding a positive. So we get 2 over 1 plus 3 is 4. And we should simplify this fraction, so it's a half. All right, so our slope is a half. Now we can go ahead and put our slope and x1 and y1 into this equation here. So we get y minus y1 is 5 equals our slope, which is a half, times x minus x1, which is negative 3. And again, be careful about the minus sign. Subtracting a negative is adding a positive. So it's like this. Y minus 5 equals 1/2 times x plus 3. Now I'll distribute the half here. what we're doing is putting this equation into slope-intercept form. We're doing that because the problem from the test asked us to. So distributing that 1/2, we get y minus 5 equals 1/2 x plus 3 times 1/2 is 3/2. That's 1.5, but I like improper fractions myself, so I'll just leave it like this. Now we can add 5 to both sides, and we get y equals 1/2 x plus 3/2 plus 5. 5 is equal to 10/2. So 3/2 plus 5, 3/2 plus 10/2 is 13/2. So there's the equation of the line. All right, next up is problems 7 and 8. I'll have a video out for that in just a minute.